Tag TV and Tag Radio. Be seen and heard by both technology users and technology producers throughout the state of Georgia and around the world. Low cost, big benefits, powerhouse online branded video and audio has arrived. Tag TV, Tag Radio, there's a lot more to know. It's all about succeeding and thriving in what experts are now calling the new world of work. That's right, the new world of work, and it's all about the way people communicate, the way meetings are conducted, the way information is stored and shared. It's a new world of work, all right, and it's all about change, technology, people, process, and culture. Your ability to collaborate, to be social, can be a competitive advantage, and Tag's Social Society will show you how. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, October 22nd, 2013, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. I'm your guest host, Frank Baia. Up to the Tech Talk, Tag Social Society presents the first annual Tag Social Savvy Awards, featuring keynote speaker Luke Davies from LinkedIn. That's right. Mark your calendars for Tuesday, November 5th from 4 to 7:30 p.m. You won't want to miss his presentation, nor the award winners and the social experts in breakout sessions, or the Genius Bar, featuring top university students taking on any and all questions about social media. In a rare appearance, you will experience firsthand the insights, the data metrics, and the new developments direct from LinkedIn's headquarters, as Luke Davies, one of the company's top sales and marketing leaders, visits Atlanta for this first-of-its-kind Tag Social Savvy Awards event. It's a signature event created specifically to recognize companies for innovation in the social space for 2013. Luke will be speaking on social selling thought leadership at LinkedIn. Before joining the company, he was a pioneering entrepreneur and a founder of a software company at the intersection of social media and online video. He also ran a leading boutique executive search firm recruiting top sales and marketing leaders for high-growth companies. If you are a top executive looking to advance social business for your organization or your clients, or would like to be, don't just hear from the top social savvy companies in Atlanta. Meet them up close and personally. It's the first annual Tag Social Savvy Awards this November 5th. Go to tagonline.org, look under Chapters and Societies, and then click Social for details. Find out now what LinkedIn is up to next as we Tech Talk thought leadership social selling and what you can expect to hear at the Savvy Awards from keynote speaker, LinkedIn's own Executive Luke Davies. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Luke, welcome to Tech Talk.
Hey, thanks, Frank.
Well, I'm really excited to actually have an opportunity to speak to someone who probably knows and understands all of the benefits and how to use LinkedIn, because I've been around the site for, I guess, several years, and over the course of that time, I've seen so many things change and so many new, let's say, applications or benefits come to rise that I've probably done even taking advantage of them all. I know one thing for sure. It's a good day when I get a notification that I've been endorsed. Half the time, I'm not sure exactly why they would endorse me for doing it, but it makes me feel good for that morning. Let's talk a little bit about where LinkedIn was and how it's changed over the years.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question, and your opinion there, you're really not alone. So a couple of years ago, probably about 2.5 years ago, something fundamentally changed at LinkedIn. And the big change was that people were going there not just when they're looking for a job anymore, but to actually help them with their current job. And the reason that change has happened is for a few things. One, people that are in sales and business development and in the business of trying to book meetings and build pipeline for their companies regularly use LinkedIn to find new decision makers and to find people to sell stuff to. Also, with the launch of one of our products called LinkedIn Today, increasingly people are going to LinkedIn as a place to get information to help them with their current job, as a place to get informed about what their colleagues are reading, what their peers are reading, what people like them in similar roles to them are reading. And it's an excellent way for people to just stay on top of their game and be in tune with the things that are happening in their market.
Well, I think without question, that's really big. I know the cliche was that you'd go to a meeting, and the minute you got a business card, you came back to your office and went to the internet to see if you could learn more about them. Now it's the case I do that with LinkedIn. If I really want to know who I've just been talking to, or actually who I'm going to meet with, I'll go to LinkedIn first as my primary source to get some background on the individual.
It's neat that you say that, and that's the advice that I always give people when they ask for information on how to improve their LinkedIn profile. And for the most part, LinkedIn profiles kind of look like resumes, and they kind of look like an abbreviated version of a resume. But one of the things that I think people don't think about a lot is who the actual audience is that's reading that information of your professional profile. Often it's partners or prospects or people that wouldn't have that future job for you, but would just help you do your job today better. So the advice that I would give there is just be aware of who your audience is and structure your profile in a way that talks about how you've actually helped people solve tough problems and how you've actually produced things that are of interest and of value versus a short form of your resume.
It's kind of fascinating how the platform has created such trust and credibility. I mean, obviously, within a certain level, if you deal with things I've read, places I've been, or other types of maybe personal inquiries that kind of identifies who you are, that's one thing. But when you actually have the ability to script out pretty much what you want people to perceive you as, and most of the time, if not 100% of the time, I take it as 100%, not to imply that it isn't the truth, but I really take it as a very credible insight into that particular individual. I know one of the things, again, as I mentioned earlier, there's almost a gamification kind of a thing between that endorsement component and also getting invited. I mean, there's something, it's almost like getting I think I feel better about that than I do an electronic birthday card, because I kind of know that sort of, somebody got alerted it was my birthday from a calendar. The invite is almost more purposeful. I guess really my point being is, how is that interrelationship to its credibility evolved? Is that something that was accidental excellence, or was it purposely driven in terms of its design and format?
I'm not sure whether we thought that out before we built it or not, but the link is certainly there. So we've actually done studies to determine where the actual truth exists and whether or not people are more truthful on traditional resumes or their LinkedIn profile. And it's interesting, and the results aren't surprising if you think about it, but LinkedIn profiles tend to be significantly more accurate than written resumes.
How about that? I think also it's a case where it's gotten so to the point, as we were just talking earlier, that you're using it not just to create a veneer, you're actually using it to build a relationship. So in turn, what better way to do that than start off with the facts and keep the facts as truthful as possible? I certainly wouldn't want to, say something I couldn't live up to if in turn that relationship turned into a business opportunity. Let's talk a little bit about something. I know there's a lot of buzz around LinkedIn in terms of sales solutions and the fact, in fact, I don't know, are you actually at liberty to talk about that yet? That's kind of still in a beta version, or is that just something that's on the, in the queue, if you will?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So today LinkedIn is structured into three distinct revenue streams. The first one, which is one that I think everybody knows, is called Talent Solutions, which took us public and still represents about 50% of our revenue as a company. And that part of the business is pretty straightforward. We sell deeper access to the LinkedIn members, to HR departments and recruiters, in an attempt to help them build out their teams and to recruit people into organizations. That was our first business. The second line of business was Marketing Solutions. And what Marketing Solutions does is it enables marketers to target decision makers in a way that I don't think has been possible before, just because the level of granularity you can target people with on our platform is really, really tight. So they sell things like display advertising, partner messages, follower campaigns to marketers. And then the third part of the business, which we're calling Sales Solutions, was thought of a number of years ago, but we've really taken our time to actually develop the product. So for years, our product team has looked at our LinkedIn memberships, and in an attempt to try to determine what to build next, we look really closely at how people are using our platform. And hands down, the biggest constituents on LinkedIn in terms of volume of members has been salespeople. And their activities on the platform are pretty straightforward. I mean, they go on there and they research profiles and they look for people to go and sell stuff to, and they try to book meetings with them. Mm-hmm. So we've known for a long time that there was a market opportunity in sales. We've just been really cautious around how we brought that to market, because one of the things that LinkedIn does before they build anything, before we make any decision at all, really, is think about how this is going to impact all members. We've got this mentality of members first. So as we were launching this product, we were as mindful about actual buyers and decision makers as we were about the group that we were trying to enable. And we've been really, really cautious around how do we launch a product that helps salespeople, but at the same time also improves the buying process. And as you can imagine, that's pretty challenging, right? So the overarching philosophy there is to try to reduce the volume of communication between those two groups mm-hmm. and increase the quality.
I think those are absolutely key points. I think, unfortunately or fortunately, whatever the case may be, we're on information overload, and the quote-unquote junk mail is really getting to the point where there's so many ways that you can get information, even the kind of information you want to get, and then all of a sudden it seems like the knowledge becomes tainted by sales, and somehow or another it shifts from being able to get information to be a selling target for a particular product or service, and I end up not opening. And that isn't the case with LinkedIn. 99.9% of the time, if it's coming into my email, and it's got, in fact, actually, one of the things that, and I probably shouldn't even bring it up because it may be a touchy subject, is every once in a while I feel like I'm getting spammed by someone that isn't truly LinkedIn, because it just doesn't have the total look and feel, and the message isn't there. And it's very rare, but there is a couple of times when I haven't hit the button to do something with it, simply because it just didn't seem like it was the purity of the kind of messaging, that quality that you're talking about, and concern about the members and making sure they're protected. I guess there is.
We do try to advocate. There is kind of a recipe for success on LinkedIn when you are prospecting and trying to find new people to either network with or do business with. And as you can imagine, I mean, the formula is very much like real life. The kind of things you'd want to do if you're at a cocktail party or if you're at a bar meeting somebody. The same rules apply, right? I mean, be interested in them, lead with information about them, and show genuine interest and concern about maybe what they're trying to do and what their goals are, and be mindful of their time.
I'm going to talk about two aspects: where you were and where you're going, because I think a lot of people, I know that. If I'm correct, you're coming around something like less than 10 years, but like 8 years or something like that LinkedIn has been around. I think a lot of us have caught up to it in certain increments at certain periods of time. So it might have been a few years ago, it might have been several years ago. But maybe few of us would understand where does its roots lie? How did it actually begin?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Reid Hoffman's the founder, and at the time he founded LinkedIn in 2003. And this was early days of social networks. So things like MySpace existed, and at the time Friendster existed. Mm-hmm. But nothing really existed to leverage the power of social networks for business. So Reid, I guess, is a bit of a visionary, and he saw a real opportunity there in something that other people probably viewed as maybe a little bit boring and traditional. And he thought, if this is a more efficient way for young people to communicate with each other and to maintain relationships, then certainly it will apply to business as well. So he laid the groundwork for basically enabling people that already do business together to just manage their Rolodexes electronically. And then from there were some natural revenue streams that came out of that. And our philosophy as a company has always been to own a market. So enter markets where we can completely dominate and own them, and to do a really good job of disrupting the way business happens in those markets today. So I think that the talent solutions business is a great example of that. It's fundamentally changed since LinkedIn came around. I mean, the whole recruiting industry, I think, has changed and shrank and been brought inside of companies for the most part now. Sure.
Well, let's talk. You mentioned the sales solution aspect of as far as something new and that's up and coming. But let's talk a little bit further out. Let's talk about. Certainly, you guys are brainstorming what's next, looking at, I'm guessing, big data analytics, pattern detection, maybe providing some form of information in that regard, or I'm probably answering my own question, but what are some of the things that ultimately happens when that maturity, when that community builds out to its fullness, its full maturity, and really starts creating a dialogue with each other, and you're there to, in effect, kind of watch the patterns?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sure is a fun thing to think about. So, there's definitely some steps I think that we have to take before we get there. So the basic steps that we would take on that path would be to get the level of proliferation we have in North America in other markets. So we're heads down on international expansion right now and expanding really quickly in places like South America, India, Brazil, as well as China. Additionally, I see mobile as a huge growth area for us. So today, north of 35% of all page views are coming from mobile devices, and that is a part of our business that's growing really, really rapidly. But if you think about businesses and the parts of the business that we can start to manage for businesses, I think there's a huge opportunity there as well. So today, if you go into any large business that has more than 100,000 people in it, they've got real challenges just understanding who their own employees are, what skills they have, where they have gaps, where they're going to have gaps in the future. So they're not going to be able to know, as an example, whether 15% of their staff who has executive leadership skills may be retiring in the next 12 to 15 years. They won't even know how to source projects in a lot of cases that require really specific skills that they may have internally at their own organizations. So one of the things where I see a short to medium-term opportunity is taking that LinkedIn profile and having an internal and an external version of it. So the internal is going to be highly protected. It's going to be behind a firewall. It's going to be private and able for HR people and other people to see. And then there'll be an external profile where you can maintain relationships with people outside of your organization. So if we were able to pull that off, so that would be a really strong way to entrench us into large enterprises that would rely on us for things like single sign-on, access control, LDAP, and provisioning things to employees.
Well, now you mentioned enterprise and larger enterprise. What about smaller companies?
Sure. I think actual smaller companies are more nimble and better able to take advantage of the three products we have right now, better than big ones are, because it tends to be one person in charge of marketing, one person in charge of sales, one person in charge of HR who report to a CEO, and they tend to be more fluid with their business practices and be able to adapt to our products in a way that they can meaningfully take advantage of all three. Bigger companies today are a little bit more challenged in doing that just because there's a layer of bureaucracy that has to tend to slow things down. So I would actually argue that medium and smaller companies are better equipped to take advantage of LinkedIn right now than big ones.
Well, you mentioned, obviously, looking a little bit into the future. One last question kind of puts you on the spot, and that is, it's 10 years out. The ubiquitous cloud has really in pretty much embraced everybody into one interaction of one kind or another. There's an app for everything, and everything is mobile. Probably computers with clothing and some of the hardware they're talking about are ubiquitous as well. What's relationships? How does social really play a role in terms of what we would have thought as traditional relationships, certainly in the case of collaboration and maybe in the case of selling? What's it look like 10 years out?
Well, I'm hopeful that there's going to be more weighting of relationships. I mean, I think one thing that every social network user, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, probably struggles with is, what's the real quality of that relationship and what's the context of it? So, I'm hopeful that we or somebody else cracks the code around just, understanding how deep relationships are and when and how to use them more effectively. I mean, I think it sounds kind of simplistic, but I think it's really powerful if used and done properly.
Well, you say simplistic, but I'm convinced there's an old song that started out with "Somewhere deep in the jungle are living some little men and women. They are our past, but maybe they are the future." That everything just evolves into a much more simpler existence by way of the ubiquitous technology that will be offered to us to be able to communicate and build relations. I think it's fascinating when we talk about, say, LinkedIn in China. I guess it's a case where there's a human aspect to culture in terms of the way we interact with each other and the way we communicate with each other, or is it a case where some of these expansions into international markets are not only the awareness of the product, but truly a more educational program of getting them to understand how you might use it, or do they already accept it in the same way that it was accepted in North America?
Yeah, I think our challenges in Asia are less around the desire of people to use our product and more around the regulations of the actual country.
Government, yeah.
Yeah, so like we don't have any issues in other parts of Asia, and we're actually expanding really quickly in those areas. And we're just being really cautious and methodical in our entry to China right now.
Well, Luke, time has run out on our conversation, but the insights and information on LinkedIn and social business has only begun. That's right, to Tech Talk listeners and to all TAG members, this is your personal invitation to join the TAG Social Society November 5th for its first annual Savvy Awards, and to hear in length all of Luke's thought leadership and LinkedIn insights. Luke, thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to join us today on Tech Talk.